Hi, this is a question from someone who is suffering from acute ear infection and is wondering whether she should take antibiotics as a last resort. Basically, ear infections have underlying causes that are not directly related to the ears, but to bacteria that evolve and grow in the ears and in the auditory ducts, but are basically emerging from sections or parts of the gastrointestinal tract. Most people think that the ears are independent from the gastrointestinal tract, but this is not the case. In fact, there is a duct that's called the eustachian tube, and that is the duct that runs from the throat all the way up into the ears. And that duct, also known as the auditory duct, is connected to the throat center, and the throat is connected to the gastrointestinal tract. As we know, the mouth, the nose, the ears, they're all basically interconnected. Now, when there is a lot of trouble in the gastrointestinal tract in terms of undigested food that is being fermented or putrefied, then there is a large amount of bacterial activity, and these bacteria, which are part of the fermenting team to dispose of undigested foods, these bacteria produce toxins, and these toxins are highly irritating, and many of them move up into the chest area and from there into the mouth and into the ear ducts and then into the ears, and they can continue the irritating effect that is also experienced in the lower parts of the body. So when food isn't digested, which is the main culprit here, then it's better to address the underlying causes while perhaps also addressing the symptoms, because ear infections can be extremely painful. I would suggest not to take recourse to antibiotics, however, because antibiotics can cause more problems than they can rectify. Because once an antibiotic has been consumed, the bacteria in the gut, which regulate the digestive process and help to absorb nutrients from the foods we eat, can be highly disturbed for up to a year after taking one course of antibiotics. So there is a disadvantage taking recourse to such weapons as killing germs. It's better to set the preconditions, clean out the intestines. I would suggest to have a colonic irrigation, colon hydrotherapy, or a colema to clean out the intestines so that there is an outlet for accumulated waste matter that is backing up into the upper parts of the body, so that the ears and the ear ducts can empty, can release whatever has been accumulated there, which harbors obviously fermenting or putrefying bacteria. So bacteria don't infect healthy tissue, they only infect tissue that has been congested, where toxins have accumulated, where waste matter, metabolic waste, and other cellular debris is accumulated, and that's where the bacteria will accumulate as well, and that's where they will take action. So we cannot blame the bacteria for causing such infections, but we need to look at what causes the bacteria to assemble there and to do their so-called dirty job, cleaning up the mess that somehow we have created in our body. I suggest to make sure in the future to deal with the digestive process, avoiding foods that can cause a lot of fermentation, and lead to the proliferation of what is known as Candida bacteria. And these Candida bacteria are responsible for fermenting foods that we have not been able to digest properly. And in order to stop Candida bacteria ending up going into the ears and causing ear infections, it's important to deal with it at the root cause, not just on the symptomatic level. However, sometimes it is extremely debilitating to have the pain and the congestion in the ears, given the high pressure and the exposure of nerves and nerve endings in the sensitive parts of the inner ear that can easily get inflamed and can cause a lot of pain. So in that case, I would suggest to take hydrogen peroxide, the solution that you find in most pharmacies, 3-4%, which you put in a tiny little bottle and you spray that into the ear a couple of times. And you may want to put put the head sideways so that the hydrogen peroxide is sitting there for a while, taking its action, and it will kill bacteria there. This is obviously just to relieve the symptoms, not to cure the problem. The cure lies in dealing with the underlying issues, that is poor digestion, poor diet, poor lifestyle, and eating habits that are responsible for that, and perhaps also poor bile secretion because of intrahepatic gallstones blocking the bile ducts, not allowing you to have enough bile available for the digestive process. Bile keeps the bacterial population in balance and makes sure that food is properly digested and absorbed, and therefore cannot become a fertile ground for bacterial proliferation and subsequent infection. So it's good to always use natural ways rather than unnatural ways that you just blindly kill germs. Doesn't matter whether they are the good kind or the bad kind. In my opinion, there are no bad bacteria. There are bacteria for different reasons, for different purposes. Some are for constructive purposes, like creating vitamins like B12, and then there are others that have to act on food to break it down and to also dispose of waste matter. So all bacteria are actually good bacteria, and we should not just indiscriminately kill them off and cause more harm in the body than good, because once you have taken antibiotics, it is very likely that the same issue is coming back, and it is usually worse each time you have used antibiotics, and eventually the bacteria that are involved in these infections, they become resistant to these drugs, and there comes a point where antibiotics are no longer going to work, and that causes far more serious issues than the initial pain that you may experience with an infection in the ear. It's also important to make sure you get enough sun exposure. Vitamin D deficiency is a major reason for infectious disease, because the immune system depends on vitamin D. Vitamin D controls the immune system and thousands of genes responsible for the natural defenses in the body. So make sure that you expose your skin to the sun on a regular basis. If the sun is too weak to generate vitamin D in the body, then I would suggest to take here to use a vitamin D lamp or UV lamp. You can find them on the internet, and you use these during the time when the sun is not available or capable of producing vitamin D at that time. So I would suggest you take these measures as a matter of precaution, prevention, so that you don't have to deal with the painful consequences at a later stage.